If it feels like the bottom has fallen out of the Trump campaign, this latest endorsement of Kamala Harris isn't going to do Donald Trump any favors. His own nephew, Fred Trump, appeared on The View, and here's what he had to say.
I believe in policy over politics.
Yeah.
And without question, Kamala Harris's policies are what I get behind. So I will be voting for Kamala Harris. And if I'm asked, I will campaign for her without hesitation.
Good. And of course, this comes in the immediate aftermath of Fred Trump sitting down with ABC News to explain some background on why he ultimately refused to endorse his own uncle.
After his uncle was elected president, Fred Trump says he saw an opportunity to advocate for the disabled.
I was in the Oval Office 12 times, and that was our mission, to advocate for people with complex disabilities. It culminated in May of 2020. In the Oval Office, Donald was there, and he was very gracious. Several other folks were there, including the group that we brought down. We dispersed. I was asked to go back and see Donald. He greeted me with his familiar, "Hey, pal, how's it going?" We sat down for a bit, and he just came out with, "These people, all the expenses, they should just die." He's talking about human beings who have complex issues, and the first thing he could say was, they should just die.
Fred claims this wasn't isolated, describing a phone call to alert his uncle the medical fund set up by the family for his son William was running low, a fund he says the former president consistently replenished.
A couple of years ago, I called him. I said, "Donald, the fund's running out." And without hesitation, he said, "Your son doesn't recognize you. Let him die and move to Florida."
Were you surprised?
It's a great question. My response was, "No, Donald, he does recognize me," and said, I'll thanks, and hung up. Was I surprised? I don't think you could hear something like that and not be surprised. But that is what he has become. It's sad.
And look, Trump telling his own nephew that he should let his own son die is obviously bad enough unto itself. But almost more damning is the fact that Fred Trump can't even definitively say that he's surprised. Imagine being such a vile, depraved human being that when you suggest that your family member should be left for dead, it doesn't even surprise them. This is the leader of the purported party of family values. Got it. Granted, we shouldn't be surprised that Republicans' branding doesn't at all comport with Republican behavior. They claim to be the party of family values, and yet they've lined up behind a sexual serial predator who just got convicted on 34 felony counts related to a hush money payout for an affair he had while his wife was at home with their infant son. They claim to be the party of states' rights, and yet they all backed a 2020 Texas lawsuit seeking to invalidate the election results in 4 other states, all because they didn't like how those voters of those states voted. They claim to be the party of fiscal responsibility, and yet the last time Republicans had full control of government, they added a staggering $7.8 trillion to the debt and constantly bring us to the brink of economic collapse with the threats of government shutdowns. They claim to be the party of the police, and yet Trump supporters bludgeon police officers with flagpoles on January 6th. They claim to be the party of the Constitution, and yet theirs is the first party in the history of this country not to abide by the peaceful transfer of power. On issue after issue after issue, you could fly a 777 in the space between what Republicans say and what they do. And by the way, on that point, my upcoming book, Shameless, is literally based on that exact idea, how Republicans have exploited their historical branding to give themselves cover to behave in a way that's completely antithetical to that branding. So if you'd like to learn more about the history of the GOP so that you'll have a much clearer understanding of why they think they can get away with what they can get away with today, then please consider pre-ordering Shameless. I'll put the link right here on the screen or in the post description of this video, or you can check out briantylercohen.com/book. But back to the endorsement of Kamala Harris by Fred Trump. While this is damaging, it's by no means the only blow that Trump has sustained on that front. Just days ago, the Republican mayor of Mesa, Arizona came out against him.
Mr. Mayor, tell us why, in your estimation, Donald Trump should not be returned to the White House.
Well, you know, I'm obviously reluctant to as a Republican, I love to endorse Republicans. And so this was a pretty thoughtful process and Also, being a mayor, my preference is to avoid getting involved in public partisan fighting whenever possible. But there are certain times that the question that is presented is a moral one and an ethical one and a question of character, and silence is not an option. So that's my argument to my fellow Republicans, that this is not a year that we can follow tradition or follow misplaced loyalty and vote for a Republican at the top of the ticket. Donald Trump has demonstrated that he lacks the character, lacks the commitment to the rule of law and to the United States Constitution to qualify as an elected official, let alone as President of the United States.
As well as former Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, Jeff Duncan, also a Republican.
Look, I've said this before, including on this show, that I am committed to beating Donald Trump for all the right reasons. I'm willing to make the 4-year investment into the Republican Party to fix us, to heal us. We are a better party without Donald Trump. And I know millions of Republicans don't see that, but they will one day. They'll be embarrassed that they took the bait and followed Donald Trump down a dark path for our party. And so I'm committed. And if that means endorsing, speaking for, voting for, waving a sign, whatever. I don't agree with Kamala Harris on everything. I didn't agree with Joe Biden on everything. I don't agree with my wife on everything. But I am committed to this country. And I think actually, she doesn't agree with me on everything. I think that's probably the better way to put it.
Let's be candid. Any spouse who says they agree with the other on everything is definitely not telling the truth. Maybe for marital harmony, but still not telling the truth. Sorry, continue.
No, look, I'm willing to eat a little bit of humble pie here to do the right thing. And the right thing is to beat Donald Trump. I couldn't help but think, what would have happened if Donald Trump would have done what Joe Biden did yesterday a few months ago? If he would have done the decent thing, the thing that we all know makes sense, and that's to step away from the job of being the nominee. We would be a better party for it. I've been behind the curtain with Donald Trump. Everybody who's been behind the curtain with Donald Trump and watched him make decisions know that he's reckless on a good day and dangerous on a bad day. And that's probably the most optimistic way to put it.
In fact, of 44 former cabinet officials, only four have publicly endorsed Donald Trump's 2024 campaign. And let's be clear, these are the people who know Trump best. These are the people who've worked closest with him. These are the ones who know who he really is. If these people don't think he's fit for office, people who were once so close with Trump that he literally gave them the most coveted positions in the US government, then we should probably take that to heart. So I get that the media feels some undying obligation to both sides of everything, but I want to be clear. It is not normal for a presidential candidate not to be able to secure the endorsements of his own family members, of his own cabinet officials, or of his own former vice president. The people who are abandoning Donald Trump are the people who know him best. If there's anyone worth listening to on this topic, it's them. And again, these aren't avowed partisans. They're not Democrats. These aren't bleeding heart liberals. They are lifelong conservatives. When Mike Pence or Mark Esper or John Kelly, John Bolton, Fred Trump refuse to endorse a Republican, the problem is very clearly the guy at the top of the ticket. And that's coming into clearer and clearer focus by the day. So good on Fred Trump for coming out, and hopefully the dam continues to break for those Republicans who are actually willing to put country over party and endorse Kamala Harris for president. I've got a really exciting announcement. I've written a book. It's called Shameless. This book explores how Republicans have exploited their historical branding while attacking our democracy, how the media has proven itself a willful participant, and how Democrats can learn from this to rebalance the political scales and save our democracy. It has been a lifelong dream of mine to write my own book, and so I'd like to ask you to pre-order it by clicking the link right here on the screen. And if you buy within this pre-order period, your book is going to come with a signed nameplate. As you know, I've never had a single sponsor on my channel. I don't ask for money or anything like that, but if you're looking for a way to support me, this is hands down the best way to do it. So again, follow the link right here on the screen, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for pre-ordering Shameless. And as always, make sure to subscribe to see more of my content.